Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits Encounters video. While I'm continuing to do your suggestions for this go around, I thought I would mix this one in here. This one coming from the Reddit.com website. They're from the subreddit called Real Ghost Stories. I'm sorry, you might have just heard my cat waking up on the side there. But the reason why I wanted to mix this one in here is because this is really good stuff. This is from a user's experience, but it's actually split into 3 separate parts. Each of those parts have some long-winded information, very good detail associated with each part. This is the kind of stuff that I look for. Really, really good details that are linked to someone's own encounter. So very happy to share each part here. This one, of course, will be part 1, and then I'll do part 2 and part 3 on some of the other videos. And as always, I love to hear what your own thoughts and comments on there are. But it comes from a user called Sleepy Melfho, and they titled the first part as Our Family's Ghost Story. It apparently has to do with something called the Whisper Incident. So let's go ahead and let's share that here, and then I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on it afterward too. So here's what they stated. Hello, I posted before about telling the story of what has happened in the house my parents built back in the late 1980s. It is a huge wall of text, so I broke it down into 3 parts. These include general background and other people's experiences, my personal experiences, and then the worst thing that happened to me because it affected my daughter involving the ghost, the Whisper Incident. There are more instances than what I've written, but even just what I have already typed, at least up, took me over 3 hours last night, and typing out was honestly harder on me emotionally than I imagined it would be. Our family still lives in the haunted house, and hopefully always will. I won't give more identifiable information, where we live, names, etc., because as of now, nothing new has happened since 2020 with the conclusion of the Whisper Incident, and we want to maintain continued privacy. I will answer questions if you had any, so by all means, ask away. Now, we do not know who the ghost could be, only that she has been in our lives for as long as we have been alive ourselves. But I have suspicions on how she died based on the things that happened in the house. I did find a hella creepy broken baby bassinet in the attic while staging the house after TWI, but I'll have to search for any pictures I took of it since that was 2 phones ago. Not sure if that's related to the ghosts at all, but both of my parents are dead now, so I can't ask where it came from. Anyways, here is part 1, which involves other people's stories. Okay, this is more of a precursor to what I call the Whisper Incident, where a spirit my daughter named Whisper terrorized her for weeks before I jumped up and moved away to protect her. I will type both, but this one starts in the late 1980s when my parents built our house. Our family still lives there. I personally do not. I'm with my husband and kids across the state. That the Whisper Incident happened in summer 2020, and as far as I know, nothing has happened since. Anyways, here we go. So my parents built our house in the middle of acres upon acres of woods. We only have like a quarter of a half of an acre ourselves, but the house was completely surrounded by woods and creeks and all that jazz. No neighbors or anything within close distance, just us. My mom said that the first thing she noticed were when she started to decorate a room for my old sister, who she was pregnant with. She would be painting the room and then see something dark out of the corner of her eye or feel like something was watching her. She never felt like it was bad, so it didn't bother her, but she did call and tell my dad about it. He thought she was crazy and said ghosts didn't exist, but my mom always felt it there and later saw full body apparitions. She described it as a little girl with long dirty hair and wearing a white dirty nightgown looking dress. I have never personally seen it, but others who have described it the same way. With that being said, she clearly wasn't the only one to experience it. I have multiple family members who did, with some of them refusing to step foot in our house to this day. Some of those instances include my uncle calling the police while house sitting because he heard someone running around upstairs, and my cousin seeing something at the foot of his bed that woke him up while sleeping, and my mom's cousin sitting with my mom in the kitchen and then seeing a small ball roll into the room by itself and start rolling in circles completely by itself before rolling back out of the room unassisted. We had a babysitter call my mom and quit on the spot because as she was washing dishes, our fire alarm came off the wall and floated mid-air to her before falling at her feet. And I'm sure there are more instances, but again, this is my backstory post, so I'm trying not to get too long-winded. My mom told us that once my sister was born, she started having more things happen. She would hear crying and run up to check on her, but would find her fast asleep, and even heard something call out mommy when my sister would be at preschool. It was all innocent things until my sister, who we will call Louise, was about 3 years old. When she was 3, she started waking up at night crying. She would go to my mom and dad and say that something was in her room. She would say there were laughing faces in her room, birds in her room would spin, bed would move, etc. My dad was insistent that we were in bed by a certain time, so he would beat my sister with a belt and then send her back to bed. But she would keep waking up and the cycle would repeat all night long. My mom started to become concerned because to her, my sister was too young to lie, and even though she was getting punished, she would not relent and kept saying this was happening and was real. My mom had a friend who was a psychic. Her name was Norma, and she used to do seances and things with Norma when she was younger, so she asked her if she could come and see if this stuff affecting Louise was connected to the spirit that she had been seeing. Norma came and went into my sister's room alone. When she came out a while later, she confirmed to my mom that a little girl was in the house and told my mom that she asked Louise if she wanted to play with her, and Louise said no, so she was angry. Norma asked the spirit not to torment Louise anymore, and somehow they made an agreement that when 3 stones that Norma put on our back porch disappeared, the spirit would leave Louise alone. Norma explained that the little girl was not bad herself and that her being there would protect us from more negative spirits entering the house. Sure enough, one day my mom went on the porch and the stones were gone, and Louise never complained about it again. But don't get too excited. The spirit still messed with the rest of us. And then my mom and dad had a total of 5 kids. I am using our middle names to identify us because I want to keep some kind of anonymity. Now, Louise is the oldest, followed by myself, Anne, my younger sister Kate, my younger sister Leah, and the baby, my brother Michael. Kate and I are only 14 months apart, so we were essentially always together. For that reason, I believe the ghost did not mess with us as much as children. From experience, it seems like she likes to focus on children when they are alone. However, she did play with Leia and Michael quite frequently. Now, when Leia was little, she would randomly talk about her friend Ghosty. She named it that on her own when she was like 2 or 3 years old and had never heard about the ghost from anyone else at that age. So she played with it, read to it, etc. constantly until she started pre-K. And then this ghost moved on to Michael. The worst thing I remember with Leia was her Jack-in-the-Box. She got this Jack-in-the-Box in a present, and you can still find these ones out there today. Well, Ghosty apparently liked it because at night when us kids were asleep, my mom and dad would hear it going off by itself. My dad would run up upstairs angry because, again, he would beat us if we were out of bed after his designated bedtime, but he would get to the playroom and find it empty every single time. This is one of the few instances my dad ever acknowledged that something was going on in that house. He tried everything to make it stop. He would put up toys on top of it, hide it, etc., but he would still hear it going off and popping open. Finally, he took it to work with him one morning, and when he came home, he said it was destroyed. He never elaborated on what he did to it, only that it could never go off again. Another time I remember with Leia was when she was younger. My mom was giving her a bath and started hearing something running up and down the stairs. My mom thought it was us and then went to tell us to stop. My mom always told us that she thought Ghosty tried to warn her when things were going to happen. I personally think she made things happen. Well, my mom left to tell us to stop running up and down the stairs. Leia fell and busted her head on the faucet. It wasn't bad, and I always thought it was suspicious that it seemed to distract my mom, and then my sister got hurt. I was 8 years old when Michael was born, so I was witness to many things involving Ghosty and him. One big thing was when he was in his crib and I heard him wake up on the baby monitor. I was and am obsessed with babies and would always run to get him out of bed in the morning, but it was weird because he was talking rather than babbling, and he was about 1.5 years of age at this point and was an early talker. Well, my mom and I walked up to get him, and as soon as we opened the door, he jumped up, looked at us angrily, and said, "Why did you make the little girl go away?" My mom and I just looked at each other like, what the F? But since we knew about Ghosty at this point, we just got him up and went about our day. In fact, I speak for my entire family when I say that there are so many things that should have been super scary, but weren't to us because we were so used to Ghosty. I will post my personal experiences next. Thank you for reading. Then that's it. That's at least part one associated with Sleepy Mouth Ho's own stories when it comes to her haunted experiences. So let's go ahead and talk about it here. Again, part two and part three will come afterward in some other separate videos. What a long tale, right? It looks like this house, whatever it was, in terms of it being in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by all those foresty type stuff, and then having something there since the 1980s. It looks like it's down to a ghost of a little girl. Multiple people have seen it there within the house. And then also it looks like the children it primarily loves to play with. It actually reminded me, especially that story of the Jack-in-the-Box, of the encounter that I had myself when it came to Fort Concho there in San Angelo, Texas. I posted it in a video as well. I'll include the link for it below because this little girl ghost actually caused me to run out of that location as well. She was very fond of Jack-in-the-Boxes. This was a story involving Edie, involving her little ghost apparition, her status there at Fort Concho. She was very, very fond of it. You could always see her if you walk into a certain room at a certain time, and she'd be playing there. She'd look up, and then she apparently smiles, and then that's it. That's Edie. That's the ghost that lives over there in Fort Concho. Now, I never got to see that 100%, but I definitely felt her presence throughout the entire house. She was always watching, more like curious about everything. So for me, reading this information as far as this user and the encounter with this little girl ghost absolutely makes sense. It's the idea, again, like they're stating there, it is not a bad thing. Like it's not a bad spirit. It's more like just something that wants to always be around. And in that case, especially reading the information about that encounter with the smiling faces, and then also it looks like the lights in the house, and then also with things moving and so on, floating on the wall, especially that fire alarm. That's the kind of stuff that makes me think again that it's just getting more and more attention. Now, some of it might be a little frightful, especially if it's all of a sudden it just happens and you're not expecting it, and obviously it's unusual to see some of this stuff. But at the very least, again, it does seem like it's more of that. It's just a ghost trying to get people's attention, and then that's pretty much it. But that sounds like at least part one with regards to those encounters. I'll do part two involving more personal encounters for that user. But let me know what you guys think about those comments below. I wish, obviously for privacy purposes, that user did not post any information about their location, but it made me wonder where this location is and how prone it is to these type of ghost experiences. So maybe there's some kind of link on there too, because to them, just like us, there's no link at all as to who that ghost could be. At least yet. Maybe it's listed in one of the other parts, but there's no link as to how that person came to be, what they're doing there, the reason for it, and so on. But they're definitely tied together. The little girl ghost and then Ghosty, it does seem to have the same type of encounters with the children of that family. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.